Welcome to Replenish the Atmosphere of Discovery, where we discover the Master's plan for our lives. Today's session is titled Perspective. Today's session is titled Perspective. Perspective is your point of view, which is filtered through your experiences, your knowledge, your wisdom, your expectations, and your values. Okay, it is how you see the world. The way that you see things affect your emotions and how you respond to the world around you. Okay, so your expectations can be misplaced or poorly constructed when they're based on wrong perspectives or false input. You can get false input from other people's opinions, right? Movies, songs, social medias, all of those different things. So we must be careful about what we digest into our minds because it becomes a filter for our perspective. Okay. What you value and what you are taught to value becomes your frame of reference. Okay. It is the conditions that you impose on every situation, every person, every idea that comes in contact with you. Okay. This is why it is important to make sure that we know our value and we have a foundational set of solid values, things we won't move on. Right. So even if you were not raised in a community that value you, or place value in its right position, as an adult, you can place limitations on the access of those who devalue you, right? And also define and refine what you place value in. So once you become an adult, at that point, you begin to make the decisions about the people that are around you, about the situations that you place yourself in, right? When you stay around people and situations that don't value you, that's the condition that you impose on everything and everyone else. When you stay around people that do not value you and you stay in situations, okay, that's the condition that you impose on everything and everyone else, okay? You won't see value in the things that are valuable like time, growth, identity, or purpose, right? You end up valuing those short-term temporal things such as the desires of the flesh, the desires of the eye, and the pride of life. And so the desires of the flesh, the ones that I'm talking about, are immoral, non-beneficial desires of the heart, right? The unhealthy appetite of indulging in things that only excite you sensually and physically, okay? But they're not necessarily good for you. It's the eagerness to agree with that powerful force that convinces you to do immoral and unbeneficial things in your life. The desire of the eyes are your delight with certain possessions that look appealing, which can lead to covetousness, right? The eyes are also a portal that temptation uses to convince you or to distract you and get you to change directions to get you off course. The third one, the pride of life, describes those cravings for the splendor of an excessive life, right? This includes being thirsty, thirsting after fame and applause from people. Okay, always wanting to be recognized, wanting to be seen, wanting to just have the spotlight on you, and you don't care who you step on to get to that point. That's just something that you crave. Most people value these three things, right? And they place a higher value in these three things rather than time. They don't care how much time they waste as long as they satisfy the desires of their heart, right? But these things are temporal, okay? And they must not be chased. They come to where they should be when you are in the right position. Okay? So you don't chase things, right? You strive to be going in the right direction of your destiny. The things that you need, right? They will come to you when you are in the right position. So perspective can be subjective, which is based on your personal opinion, or objective, which is based on facts, or a mixture of both, which means you can involve your opinion with the facts to form your perspective, right? This is how this whole process works, okay? And the issue we begin having is when someone's subjective, that's an opinion, right? When someone's subjective perspective becomes facts to us, right? What someone's opinion is truth, right? and that's not accurate. And when we do that, it becomes how we form our opinions, but our opinions is based on their opinion. It's not based on a fact. Okay. And sometimes we feel so strongly about our opinions that we forget that it's an opinion. It's not a fact. So your subjective perspective must always be willing to submit to the facts. Your subjective perspective must always be willing to submit to the facts, even if you don't like who the facts are coming from, right? Even if you don't like what the facts are the facts. And your opinion or your subjective perspective must be willing to submit to the facts. So stop being 10 toes down about opinions when you have access to the facts, right? We'll form an opinion and we have access to go look up something or research something or ask someone something, and we decide not to do it because we want to hold on to our opinion. Well, that's called willful ignorance, okay? Always be willing to submit your opinion to the truth. Okay. It keeps you from attaching your opinion to a situation that needs the truth for you to make a sound decision. And sometimes a lot of times we make decisions based off our opinion of it, not based off any knowledge or any facts. Okay. Submitting to the truth instead of your opinion also prevents the subjective perspective from infusing into your identity, making you judge prematurely and begin to alter your natural characteristics, right? Characteristics such as integrity, courage, generosity, and kindness, right? These are only 4 characteristics that I notice that suffer when people choose their opinions over facts. There are many more, okay? For example, if you're naturally courageous, right? And you had to speak in front of a group of people, and then somebody pulled you to the side right before you were going to speak and stated that the people that you're going to speak to, they don't like the way you talk, right? And that might induce fear and cause you to never speak in front of people again, which not only diminishes your courage, but also begin to shrink your courage in other areas, right? And what if public speaking was your destiny? But you'll never reach it because one opinion changed your perspective and altered your destiny. Okay. Now you have been reduced to giving speeches in the mirror before you go to work to a job that you hate, right? But that wasn't a part of God's plan. And this is because you submitted to an opinion instead of a fact. So what if the fact was that only 10 people out of that 100 people that you were supposed to speak to felt that way? What if that person that told you that only knew 10 people and that was their opinion, but it was 100 people in the room, right? How would you have changed your response? Do you see how opinions can alter your perspective, which alters certain positive characteristics that you were created with in order to fulfill your destiny? One opinion, right? But you didn't have the facts. You took the opinion and you ran with it, and it altered your destiny, right? And so we make a lot of fear-based decisions with the expectation that our life will still turn out great. Instead of making these decisions in fear, get the information, get the knowledge, get the understanding, get the truth, right? Before you make these decisions that can alter your entire life. Okay. And some people are fortunate to get back on track, to recognize, that they allowed this one incident or this one situation or this one person's opinion to determine how their life will go. And, they get back on track. Other people never do, right? They actually go to the grave because of one person's opinion that they made a fact in their life. Okay. So the other issue with perspective is when we cannot see beyond what we have experienced. So we don't even want to have a different point of view because this is what I experienced and this is how it always is when this happens, right? This limits your viewpoint and blinds you to alternative ways of thinking that could cause forward movement in your life. Okay. And so we often think that changing our perspective is something bad. As soon as someone says, oh, you got to think a different way, we automatically tense up. We think it's something bad. When we are criticized about areas we need to build up or get better in, we get offended instead of changing, right? So addressing the areas you need to change is challenging who you have become when it's not you, right? That's why you feel that tension, okay? It is changing you into who you need to be. So when someone criticizes you, whether you feel it's positive or negative, we're not going to even discuss making feelings facts, right? So whether you feel that criticism is positive or negative, it is challenging the part of you that is not you. And that's the part that needs to change. Okay. You changing your perspective. That is you making a commitment to yourself. That is you making a commitment to be a better version of yourself. And most beneficial commitments require change. Most beneficial commitments require change. And this is where people stop and they don't move forward because it required them to change. Okay. There are smaller commitments, right, that you must make that brings you to the fulfillment of the larger ones, right? So if you're not willing to commit to the small things, if you stop because you have to change your perspective, or you have to change those toxic emotions, or you have to stop putting fear in the driver's seat, or you have to stop making excuses, you will continue to create lies to make you feel like you are achieving something that you're not. Okay. We lie to ourselves about our progress to run from changing our perspective. Your interpretation of the world you see, the people in it, and the situations you experience creates an explanation for how you think, how you feel, and what you do. You can explain everything, right? You got an explanation for all of it, okay? But is any of it facts? Is any of what you feel based on facts? Is any of it based on the truth? Is any of it even correct information if you do have information, right? And this is why your explanation of a thing that you can't understand, especially as a child, especially when you are in shock, is still framing your guarded, childlike, immature perspective. Okay. And so sometimes after you learn the correct information, your mind still has a hard time accepting a new point of view because it's a lot to process, right? Especially when you're in shock, especially when you don't know a lot of things. And so this happens when you've built your entire identity and future around a certain experience you've had with a particular person, a particular place, or an idea that you've had in your mind. Your whole world becomes framed around this one incident, right? And sometimes we get used to people and systems that cause brokenness. And so we become very uncomfortable with the ones that benefit us. It's called self-sabotage, right? We seek to find fault in it and we push it away, right? Because we don't understand it, because we're used to being broken. We're used to things breaking us. We're used to things being toxic and chaotic, right? So a lot of you have to go through that uncomfortable stage of letting the right people in after kicking the wrong people out. So let's just say, okay, I recognize this person or this group or this place is a bad influence. So I'm going to remove myself from there or remove them from access to me. But after that, right, you got to let the right people in, right? Now you need to be fed right. Okay. The right people won't have the same perspectives as the wrong people, right? So your instinct is to reject it because it's not what you're used to. They won't move the same way that the other ones did, right? This is going to be new for you, right? You are returning back to original God influenced mindset, and it calls for you to blend your new mindset with your new reality and your new environments. Okay. So take a look around you. If you have nothing in common with those around you, chances are that you are submitting yourself to their perspectives, their culture, their religion, their identity. Okay. Remember, your community influences the way that you interpret things. So if their lives don't look like where you're supposed to be, okay, why are you submitting yourself to their perspective and digesting their opinions as facts, right? So stop fighting the change. You need to change your perspective to grow. You need the correct translation of the world around you. You need the correct relationships. Your perspective will continue to create communication issues in your new environment if you don't change it. Your perspective will continue to create communication issues in your new environment if you do not change it. And so that's how people change locations, right? But they end up with the same problems with a whole different set of people because they don't change their perspective. Okay. So the way that your mind translates what someone says sometimes is not what is actually said. And we all have been a victim of this, and we all have done this, right? You just heard bits and pieces, and then you used your past experiences to fill in the parts that you blocked out, right? Most likely, the only pieces that you took were the parts that triggered you due to an emotional memory, okay? Then those mental pictures started coming back, which triggered your feelings, okay? And then comes the breakdown in communication. So there's no longer clarity and understanding because you went back to that place that was unhealed, unprocessed, and unbalanced. When you recognize that somebody is not hearing you, right? Stop talking because there's a breakdown in communication. Because anything you say after that is only fueled for that unmanaged trauma. Anything you say after that, after someone is saying you said something that you didn't say, is what they heard, right? But it's not what was actually said. They took bits and pieces, and the words that triggered them, they filled in the other parts with their experiences, and they repeat back to you something that is not what you said and is not what you meant, right? And when you recognize when they're not hearing you, stop. Because, like I said, you're only fueling that unmanaged trauma or that unprocessed emotion. Okay. And when you are the person that somebody is saying that's not what I said to, then realize that you may have been triggered. And it is possible you only heard pieces and you put the other parts in yourself. Okay. So stop insisting that you heard what you heard. See if you were triggered emotionally. And if you were, then take a minute to come into the present moment and separate it from the past, separate it from your emotional memory. Okay. Begin to discuss and process your trigger if that person is a safe place for you. If they're not, just withdraw from the conversation, table it. So if you are hypersensitive due to an injury or some form of injustice or some trauma, you have to process that so that your world isn't just seen and understood from an injured person's perspective. Okay. If you don't process it, that's the way you're going to see every situation, every person, every idea. That's the way you're going to see it. Right. And you do not want to create a victim personality or only see yourself from a victim's perspective. Your personality is your way of thinking, feeling, and being. And you don't want to mix that with your trauma or with your experience that you haven't processed. Your mindset or your mentality is directed by your personality. But if your personality is influenced by that injury or that trauma, then your mindset changes towards that as well. That's why we have to heal from these things. We have to process them. Okay, you may have been victimized, but don't let that become who you are, right? Because it will manifest through your behavior towards the world. Okay. It will cripple you and keep you from growing to your full potential. So you may have some measure of success, but not to the fullness, right? Victims do heal, right? And they do become who they were created to be. They can have and lead full lives, a healed version, right? Being a victim of your circumstance can cause you to shut down whenever you're criticized. It's that rejection trying to control the way that you see things, right? If you're looking at everything from that standpoint, from that perspective, you're going to see every single thing that way. You're going to see everything somebody says is someone rejecting you, right? So when you are learning to operate from a different perspective, you will have the challenge of navigating new criticisms. So some of you change locations, right? Well, now you have to navigate the new criticisms, right? You have to learn to be okay with opinions, with judgments, and even the disapproval of others as you walk in this new mindset, right? Because now you are responding from a well-trained mind with facts instead of just responding from your feelings and opinions like you did with the old mindset. Okay. So the ability to interpret correctly what is seen, heard, and felt is crucial for communication and understanding other people in this life. The ability to interpret correctly what you've seen, what you've heard, and what you felt is crucial for communication and understanding other people in this life. So the ability to see, hear, and feel through someone else's perspective is also important in your different relationships. Okay. And some people are not aware that they are completely closed to that option, but expect to form and maintain close relationships. Right? You can have shared perspectives without forfeiting your identity or diminishing your character that was formed in you for God's purposes, right? So we should be careful with who and what has influence on our perspective because it does help form our identity. If your perspective is off in any way, or if your perspective is based off falsehoods, then your identity will have some pretense in it as well, right? It causes inconsistencies in our moods, and our thinking patterns, and in our behaviors, which means that there may be parts of you identifying as someone else that is not the real you, okay? So you want to build your community based on common perspectives to avoid being inconsistent within yourself. So you'll be able to tell when there's something else that you're trying to mimic. Now you've taken on a personality of another person, and now you feel like a failure because you're not meeting this expectation that you have for this made up person, right? Um, so you want to build your community with people that have common perspectives to avoid that inconsistency, right? And this includes things that are not always seen. So that means it needs to be brought up in discussions that you have with the people around you, right? Especially people that you talk to frequently. Okay, you want to know what their perspective is. You want to know how they feel about different things. Okay, desire truth in your inward part and seek to know wisdom instead of seeking to be right and be heard. Desire truth in your inward part and seek to know wisdom instead of seeking to be right and be heard. Okay, you can become so focused on being heard because no one listened to you when it mattered, right? Or because nobody asked the right questions to protect you, that you fail to make the connection between a conversation with mutual understanding or failed communication, right? It's failed communication, even when both people are talking, if there's no understanding. Seeking to be right rather than being wise makes you look foolish. Okay. A wise person listens with the intent to understand, not to prove a point. So when your perspective is right, your thoughts, your feelings, and your behaviors will be beneficial to you and to those around you. Okay. When your perspective is tainted in any way, your thoughts, your feelings, and behaviors manifest that and cause harm to you mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and sometimes even physically. So, as time goes on and as you begin to grow and you form new healthy relationships, your perspective should evolve with you, right? So, the way you saw the world 5 years ago should be different. Even how you saw the world last week, it should be evolving with you. Your perspective should evolve as you increase in revelation, as you increase in influence, and as you increase your purposeful interactions with other people. Okay. Your perspective from a state of fear, hopelessness, and low expectations affects your decisions, right? Which affects your direction, which affects what you accomplish, right? It affects what you get done in this life, what you complete. Okay. So become motivated to commit to yourself. Break those commitments to people, ideas, and perspectives that have been sabotaging you, right? That are causing you not to value yourself the way that your creator values you, right? That should be our perspective, to see ourselves through God's eyes. So find those harmful characteristics, find those harmful perspectives that you have, assess those negative influences around you, and sort through the trauma that created that lack of peace, right? That caused you to place value in those temporal things. Okay. So when your sight or when your perspective becomes blurred or influenced negatively, then you become the one that is creating the barrier, right? That's blocking your forward movement to get to the position that you want to be in. So this year, learn how to define and refine your own perspective, right? If how you act, look, feel, and think is like the influences outside of you, the ones that you disagree with, you have become affected by outsiders more than your innate desire to be authentic. Okay. So if you are not you, then who's going to be you for you? If you're so busy forming and shaping your perspective based on everybody else's opinion, who's going to be you? Like, who's going to be the real you? Right? Or are you pushing it off on your kids? Because your world was shaped by everybody else's opinion. So now you're making your children be who you're supposed to be. Right? Or if you're a boss, you're making your employees be who you were supposed to be. If you are not you, who is going to be you for you? So clarify for yourself how you're going to view the world from now on. There should be a difference from right now to next January, right? And then once you clarify for yourself how you're going to view the world, refine it, right? Remove the perspectives and the things that influences those perspectives that you don't want. Okay. So for the next 7 days, you're going to be defining and refining your perspective, which is your point of view, your interpretation, your explanation of the world around you, the people in it, and your experiences. Okay. Don't be afraid to change your view of the things that you've gone through. What would it hurt to see yourself as the one who wins, as the one who prevails, the one who overcame? Right? What doors would that open for the way that you think, the way that you feel, the way that you act? Right? If you saw yourself from a different point of view, if you had a different perspective about what you've gone through, right? So I want you to think about perspective. That is your point of view, the way you see things. Think about what is influencing your perspective, right? Because your perspective is filtered through your experiences, your knowledge, your wisdom, your expectations, and your values. All of those things. You need to explore all of those things, and the people around you, you need to know. Know what they know, right? Know what their expectations are. Let them know what your expectations are, what you value. You need to know what they value so that you know whether or not you want to receive their perspective. Because some people, you can talk to them or get their perspective on one thing, and they're really strong in that area. But other things they may not value. That's not the person you want to talk to, right? For that particular value that you have. And so I hope that you're no longer afraid to change your perspective, right? It should be evolving. You should not have the same perspective that you had when you were 10 years old. But I do understand sometimes people are stuck in that place. And you have to understand when you're dealing with someone that's stuck in that place, right? If someone is immature in a certain area, then you have to understand that's an unhealed version of them. There's something happened when they're the age that they're acting, right? That they haven't evolved from. So they're stuck with that perspective. I also want to let you all know I do have another book. It's called Take Twice Daily, and it's a prescription for the mind. It has scripture in it and also an explanation of the scripture, how you can practically do the word of God, right? Because a lot of times we don't have time to discuss that on Sundays. And so it's a small book, it's not that long, 69 pages. It's also on Amazon. So if you have Kindle and you would like the digital version, you can get it there as well. If you want the physical copy, I have it available. Just send me a message, email. I haven't put it on the website yet, but just send me a message and I can get it to you. Send me your address as well, and I can get you the physical copy. But if you do want the digital version, it is available on Amazon. There's also two more that's in the process of being written. I think the one of the ones I started in 2022, I'm still writing on that one. Um, yeah, so that one is a prayer book. So it's 275 different prayers that I have to listen for, for 275 different topics. So that one is taking a little bit longer than the rest of them because I have to hear what is needed for that particular thing that people may be going through. So if you need a prescription, okay, this
Mm,
is the prescription you need. You just do two a day.
mm, mm.
Okay.
Okay.
You can do two a day.
Mm,
All righty. And the next 7 days, define and refine your perspectives. Okay. Especially if you get triggered. So within the next 7 days, between now and next Friday, if you get triggered, have that on your mind. What is my perspective about the situation? Can I change it? Like I have the ability to change it. Do I want to change it? Should I change it? Maybe I need to change it. Okay, let's change it. Like go through the whole process and make that decision so that your perspective can evolve with you. Because if you get put in a different situation, or let's say you have an opportunity and you lose the opportunity just because you couldn't change your perspective, right? This happens every single day. We meet people, and because we couldn't change our perspective about that type of person or the way that they look or the way that they sound, they could have been our destiny helper, and we miss out, right? Because of our perspective. So when you are triggered during the next 7 days, think about your perspective. Okay. Am I missing out on a direction? um, or person that I'm supposed to be connected to, a direction that I'm supposed to go? Am I losing that or missing out on that because of my perspective? Is any of my old perspectives trying to resurface? Because that happens too, right? Something that you remember and in your memory plays a big part, like even in your emotional memory. Um, is that old perspective trying to come back? You got to recognize these things before they, you know, grab a hold to you and won't let go, right? And so don't just take what is said here and listen, like apply it and then share it with other people. They need to know it, okay? And in everything that I do, whether it's writing books, whether it's teaching, being on here with you all, whether it's like private conversations, I am really listening for what is needed. I'm not listening for what you want to hear. Like you can go down the street for that. I'm listening to what is needed for who I am speaking to, whether it's on the phone, through text, through email, through writing these books, through these sessions. I'm listening for what is needed, not for what you want. Okay. So if this is coming up, if you guys are on here, this is something that you need, and it's something that you need to make a part of your lives. Right. And so God bless you all. And I will see you all next Friday with new perspectives, right? They're going to be defined, they're going to be refined. You're going to have the perspective of love, right? Because that's a good quality to have, which is unconditional. So some of you might need to change your perspective about love because some of you love with conditions. So stop saying you love people, just say you like them or you tolerate them. That's better than telling a lie, right? So see you all next Friday at 3 o'clock. God bless.